Hello, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast, Episode 1. During these podcasts, we will discuss topics all around the sports world and occasionally have guests on to discuss them. I, Alex Cuesta, will be your host, and you can find me via Twitter at @AQuestaNBN. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Week 1 of NBA free agency, first half of Major League Baseball as we lead up to the All-Star break, and boxing. Jumping right in, we're going to talk first about NBA free agency. It's been a wild Week 1 with a lot going on. Big whirlwinds in the basketball world. We'll start off with the players that are currently staying in their home teams. A lot of big names there. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, both staying in Golden State. Blake Griffin returning to the Clippers. Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry staying in Toronto. Dion Waiters staying in Miami. Dirk staying in Dallas. And James Harden getting a big 4-year extension from the Houston Rockets. All these players are integral to their team's future and their team's success, especially Steph and Kevin Durant, which they were a foregone conclusion that they were going to come back anyway. Blake Griffin is really big for the Los Angeles Clippers. They have just currently lost Chris Paul, and they really need to try and build around Blake now. If he could stay healthy for them, he's a really good building block for that team. Notable guys that moved and are in new homes. Paul George was a big splash. He was traded to Oklahoma City for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. Gordon Hayward goes to Boston from Utah in free agency. Jeff Teague signs with Minnesota. J.J. Redick to Philly. Otto Porter offer sheet that Brooklyn gave him was matched by Washington. Danilo Gallinari was a sign-in trade over to the Clippers. Paul Millsap, same sign-and-trade to Denver. George Hill went to Sacramento, as well as Zach Randolph. Rudy Gay went to the Spurs. And Avery Bradley and a 2023 second-round pick was sent to Detroit, and Marcus Morris went to Boston in a trade. Now, those moves were pretty earth-shaking. A lot of big names. Paul George was the biggest one of them all. He goes to OKC and joins Russell Westbrook. OKC has been having a pretty nice offseason. They've added some good pieces, and hopefully Russell Westbrook now has more players to work with, especially Paul George. He doesn't have to do it on his own. Gordon Hayward created a really big stir in his movement. He was off and on. Twitter was going absolutely crazy when his agent, it seems, or someone leaked out early that he was going to Boston. He seemed pretty ticked off, pretty unhappy about that. And he let out that he needed to rethink things. He probably wanted to be the guy to tell Utah that he was leaving, since they were a team that was pretty good to him, tried to build around him, drafted him. And so it just went a little bit topsy-turvy from there, but he ended up signing with Boston. I know the Celtics fans are pretty pumped about that. They think he's a really good piece. He can give Isaiah Thomas someone else to score, because this year in the playoffs, that was a huge issue. It was the Isaiah Thomas show, and they could not score. But keeping with the Celtics, they did lose Avery Bradley, which is a defensive stalwart, in a trade, but they got Marcus Morris back, who can score in a variety of ways. So what it looks like to me is Boston's just trying to load up on guys that can score. That's the way of this new NBA. You have a lot of people that could score, following in the Wizards' footsteps, following in the Cavaliers' footsteps. Not the Wizards, the Warriors' footsteps, sorry. And they are just trying to outscore teams. So it's a pretty big move. Boston definitely got better this offseason. And Sacramento did some pretty big things. I thought grabbing George Hill, grabbing Zach Randolph, they're two really good veteran guys. So they can do pretty wonders for that young team. Looking at our local teams here, the Knicks and the Nets. The Knicks made a pretty big splash. They got Tim Hardaway Jr. back. He had a really solid year over in Atlanta, averaging 15 points a game. A lot of fans pretty unhappy with the 4-year, $71 million contract. They think it's an overpay, and while it might be a little bit of a reach, as one of the guys that is a Sports Opinions contributor said to me, that's the state of the NBA. Overpaying is the state of the NBA. So we just kind of have to get over that and move on. because, that's just how it is. So Tim Hardaway is a Knick for at least now a few more years. Phil's gone, Hardaway's back. Hopefully he can continue to get better as a scorer, and he can give Porzingis another person to score, because I think everyone's assuming Melo's on his way out, especially since the rumors of him trading is waiving his no trade clause. So that definitely seems like he's not going to be around much longer. And over in Brooklyn, they went after Otto Porter. They missed out on that. They have a nice history of missing out on restricted free agents. Last year especially, losing Crabbe, losing Tyler, losing Montejunas, all the restricted free agency. This year, Porter gets matched by Washington, but Sean Marks does Sean Marks things, and he had a steal of a trade. He was able to grab DeMarre Carroll, which admittedly had a down year for the Raptors, but he was able to grab him, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick, both of those in 2018, and only gave up Justin Hamilton, who was a huge disappointment this season. Big note, Nets weren't in the first round for 2018. They're now in the first round. They have a first-round pick, they have another second-round pick, and they basically gave away nothing to get a player who's going to improve their team. Sean Marks did a nice move there. A lot of people, again, were knocking the Nets fans for being happy about this move, but coming from a Nets fan, good front office work, good GM work has been something that we haven't seen in a really long time. So we get excited about this sort of stuff. And now they're going to probably look towards Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, maybe a JaMychal Green, maybe a Jonathan Simmons. Any one of those guys, again, is an improvement for this team. So building towards the future. And Knicks fans, keep your head up. Phil's gone. Tim Hardaway's not as bad as it seems. He's a good player. He could score. Got to build around Porzingis. Got to keep that kid happy. And moving on, I mentioned Caldwell-Pope, Jonathan Simmons, JaMychal Green. Those are a few of the notable free agents left. Other ones, Nerlens Noel's a restricted free agent. Dwayne Dedmon, unrestricted. Pau Gasol, unrestricted. Plumlee's a restricted free agent. Don't think Denver's going to let him go. Nikola Mirotic, a Chicago restricted free agent. He's also someone on the Nets' radar. A lot of people are down on him. I think a few teams know they could probably get him cheap, so look for him. And Derrick Rose is an unrestricted free agent. Hasn't found a home yet. Really wouldn't be surprised if we see him back with the New York Knicks. They need a point guard. They need someone who could score. He averaged 19.5 points a game last year. It's not a bad thing. So if he could stay on the floor, stay healthy, he showed some explosion. His shooting is still abysmal, but if he can get to the basket and he could score 19 points a game, the Knicks can use that. I know now a lot of Knicks fans are going to scoff at that, but they can absolutely use that. So week one of NBA free agency has been absolutely crazy, but it's pretty awesome to me. And I'm excited for week two. Not as many big names, but there's still a good amount of talent out there. So hopefully we see some more craziness. Now we're going to switch our focus to Major League Baseball. First half is about to be over, and we're approaching the All-Star break, which is pretty exciting. We'll talk about the teams who were hot in the first half. Kansas City Royals finished off on a hot streak. They were pretty much dead in the water for a while. They were considered going to be one of the big sellers, and they just started rattling off games behind Mike Moustakas, who has had one heck of a season, hitting home runs. He's going to be in the home run derby, which is exciting for them, exciting for Moustakas. So you're going to see the Royals, hopefully they continue, and they're one of my favorite teams, not just from their World Series run. I've been a fan of theirs for a little bit, but they've been a hot team. The Houston Astros have been arguably the best team in baseball all year. Dallas Keuchel's been banged up, so their starting pitching has actually been hurting over the last 2-3 weeks. But that lineup is just unbelievable. Carlos Correa is one of the best players in baseball and can end up being the best player in baseball the more he matures. That whole lineup up and down is really, really dangerous. They're one of the premier teams in the American League, so I'm excited. Staying with the American League, the Boston Red Sox lead the AL East. The Yankees had a big jolt in the beginning. Red Sox kept it steady. Chris Sale has been a rock over there in Boston. He was such a great pickup for them. They're definitely a threat, even in the second half, to go further. Hopefully my Yankees can get it together, but it's exciting to see a team like Boston play. They just play good baseball. And over in the NL, the Los Angeles Dodgers have another one. They've been really, really, really good, playing good baseball. They hit the ball well. They have Clayton Kershaw throwing the ball well. They're another team that's just been playing really well. I touched on my Yankees with the two local teams, Yankees and Mets. The Yankees had a hot start. I wrote a piece on them on Sports Opinions before the season even started about how I think that they're a middle of the rung. They're a 500 ball club. They're starting to show that. They're starting to be some chips in the armor. They started off with really hot bats. They have some injuries in the lineup. Holiday is hurt. He's in the minors right now, rehabbing. Castro's injured. Hicks is out. They've suffered some losses there in that lineup, and it's shown. The starting pitching went through a lull. It's still doing surprisingly well. Luis Severino is the biggest surprise. He's been the ace all year. Just consistent, throwing the ball well, but don't think he's enough to overcome the shortcomings of Masahiro Tanaka, who's supposed to be the ace, Michael Pineda, who's the epitome of inconsistency. CC got injured after he had a good start, but we'll see what he comes back with. Jordan Montgomery has been a solid rookie, but he can't give you consistent quality starts, so he's tough to lead on. I think the Yanks are still a 500 team. That's been my opinion. That's going to continue to be my opinion. Hopefully they play well enough to get a wild card, or they prove me wrong, but I really think that 81 wins is a pretty good expectation for them. Moving on to the Mets. The Mets are probably going to be sellers come the trade deadline, but the good news is they played much better as of late. Their pitching seems to get on track. DeGrom has been on a mean streak, just on an absolute tear, pitching some of the best games in the whole league over his past 3-4 starts. He's been an absolute monster. Steven Matz, looking like he's healthy, and when he's healthy, the kid can pitch. He's another one. If they can keep him healthy, they're in a real good spot. They got a good start out of Jake Wheeler, who was just outdueled. The hitting couldn't come through for him, but he was encouraging to see a good start from him. They need to see more out of Wheeler. But the Mets, I think the Mets are the best team in New York right now. I know they got off to a slow start. I know their record still isn't the same as the Yankees, but I think as a team, they're a better team. Their bullpen is not as good, but their starting pitching is fantastic. Even injured, even hurt, they have guys like DeGrom, who's a legitimate ace in Major League Baseball. If Harvey can ever work it out and even become a semblance of himself, he's a threat. Matt staying healthy gives him a legitimate 2. They just have weapons. And then you have Yoenis Cespedes, who's an all-star player in every way. He was hurt. If he wasn't hurt, I guarantee he's an all-star. Jay Bruce has been having a ridiculous year. Even though he's a rental and probably not going to be a Met next year, he's been hitting really, really well. Guys like Lucas Duda are giving him good power. Michael Conforto, I believe, is an all-star, and that's because of his fantastic start this year. They just have been playing some good baseball, and it's really starting to come together as of late. And if that starting pitching can just become consistent, they can definitely finish off the year well. I know the wild card is pretty tough. They're a bunch of games back. They're seems like forever back from the Nationals, so playoffs might not be in the cards, but a good finish to the season is definitely there. They're considered sellers, so who knows? Jay Bruce might be in a different uniform after the trade deadline. But regardless of what they do, the Mets are a pretty good team and can end up having a pretty good season if they just stick with it. Moving on to All-Star Weekend, which is quickly approaching. The highlight of All-Star Weekend, there's the celebrity baseball game, there's the actual All-Star game. Everyone's going to be focused on the Home Run Derby this year. They have such big names in that Home Run Derby. I'll just go through the seeds right now. They have the one-on-one bracket style again this year. That was so fun to watch last year. This year the seeds are first seed Giancarlo Stanton, second seed Aaron Judge, third seed Cody Bellinger, fourth seed Mike Moustakas, fifth seed Miguel Sano, sixth seed Charlie Blackmon, seventh seed Justin Bour, and eighth seed Gary Sanchez. Now that is 8 good group of 8 hitters that are just hitting the ball out of the park on a consistent level. It's not without controversy, though. Gary Sanchez is the controversial one, sneaking in as an 8 seed. He's the backup catcher for the All-Star team. And some people had an issue with him making the Derby, specifically Logan Morrison. Logan Morrison, he's a kid. He plays for the... One second. He plays for the Tampa Bay Rays. So he has a grudge or a little bit of a snub against the Yankees. I don't think he has anything against Gary Sanchez, but he's a rival of the Yankees. And he made a comment that Sanchez shouldn't be in the home run derby. He doesn't have as many home runs as Logan Morrison up to this point. Logan Morrison has 24, Sanchez has 13. And Logan Morrison thinks he's having a better year in terms of power. And he made the assumption that it's the uniform that they wear, it's the market that they're in that separates them, and it puts Gary Sanchez in there over him. Now, part of that might be true. The Yankees are a more storied team, having a better year. Gary Sanchez, his name is more out there. I guarantee more people know who Gary Sanchez is than Logan Morrison. But if you really look at the comparison, to throw it out there, Logan Morrison is hitting more home runs this year. I think he's hitting a home run per 12 at-bats this year. Sanchez is hitting a home run per right around 16. So this year his power is better. Granted, Sanchez was coming back from an injury, so he was slow to get going. Now that he's getting going, he's hitting him at a higher clip. But he has an argument. But let's look back. Sanchez is in his second season. He played 53 games last year. I think he's up to 50 this year. Morrison played over 100 games last year, and I believe he's near the 80 mark this year. And in terms of at-bats, Logan Morrison has had 641 at-bats over the past 2 years with 38 home runs. Sanchez has had 410 at-bats with 33 home runs. I think baseball took this into account. I think they didn't only look at the body of work from this year, but they looked at Gary Sanchez last year. He came in, lit the league on fire, hit 20 home runs, looked like he was hitting home run every single day. And he was just a big name and has shown to have a lot of power. And like I said, he's coming back from injury. He's starting to hit his stride. And he's a definite threat in that Yankee lineup, especially right behind Aaron Judge, who has to be a favorite this year in the home run derby. I don't think I have to talk about Aaron Judge on this podcast. If you watch baseball or even like sports or maybe don't even know anything about it, you probably heard of Aaron Judge. The kid is just having a monster year. He just passed Joe DiMaggio's rookie home run record for the Yankees. Hit his 30th home run. It's just unbelievable stuff. Way, way, way too early to start counting your chickens on Aaron Judge. I know people are talking reckless about him being a great. I'm going to pump my brakes there. He's a rookie this year, and he needs to play a little more and needs to do this a little more consistently. I'm not taking away from his season this year. He's having a hell of a season. I'm excited to watch as a Yankees fan, but I'm going to pump our brakes a little. Guys like Giancarlo Stanton, who've been doing it for a while, that's a legitimate home run hitter. That's a legitimate superstar in this league. And he'll be there defending his championship. So really excited. Home run derby is going to be really, really, really exciting. So I hope no one misses it. We should all be out there watching it and supporting it. Moving on to the next topic, boxing. Boxing is a sport. Most people prefer UFC now. I still love boxing. A good boxing match to me trumps any sort of fight that you can watch in any sport. On that note, we just had a really good boxing match for free. No pay-per-view. It was on ESPN. It was a great night for boxing. The card was fantastic. And the main event, Pacquiao versus Horn, did not disappoint up until the decision. The fight itself was great. You saw vintage Pacquiao, yes, older, but vintage. His technique was fantastic. His power was not there. He almost knocked Horn out in the ninth round. They ended up going the distance, and from top to bottom, I think everyone watching it, unless you're Australian or a relative of Horn, really thought Manny Pacquiao won that fight. He was the better fighter. He was in control, landed a higher percent of his punches, obviously hurt Horn. The ref almost stopped the fight in the ninth round. But inexplicably, the judges unanimously ended up awarding the fight to Horn and making him the new champion. It's these type of things that have turned the boxing world upside down, have turned fans like me, like the older generation ahead of me who were big time boxing fans, were alive for the heyday of Tyson, our grandparents alive for Muhammad Ali, probably our parents young for, they watched the greatness, the best times in boxing. And this match was pretty good. It was one of the better, more exciting matches. A lot of people were turned off after Pacquiao Mayweather, but this was nothing like that. This was exciting. There were punches thrown. They were all around the whole entire ring. It was really good boxing. And then that decision occurred. And it just justified UFC's spot in taking over boxing as the best martial arts, the best fighting sport, because you rarely see, if ever, see this type of awful, terrible decisions where a person is clearly robbed of the win. It could have had a lot to do with the fact that they were in Australia and Horn's from Australia, which baffles me. Horn was the challenger, the no-name, and Pacquiao, being the champion, had to go over to his house to fight him. I don't know any other sport like this where the champion doesn't have the advantage in a championship type of match in anything. Usually the person with the better record, the person holding the belt, the champion, will have their home court, home field advantage, or neutral, which probably, I think, for championship fights, neutral is the way to go. But the home cooking definitely was there for Horn. The fans in Australia, I think, as much as they wanted to see Horn, I think they were pretty savvy to boxing, and there were a lot of Pacquiao fans there too, and they were in shock just as much as everyone else. So that's a black eye in boxing. A great fight, a great night, a great card. It's tough. Top Rank and ESPN are going to bring a few more. I saw already a few planned for August to bring some more free boxing to us, and I know I'll probably watch. I'll probably tune into both of those. But it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth after that match. Another boxing match, if you can even call it that, is going to be Conor McGregor versus Floyd Money Mayweather. This is a joke. I don't know any other way to say it. This is a mockery of fighting sports. I know so many people are excited to see it. This is going to be no contest. People forget that Floyd Mayweather is technically probably the best boxer we've ever seen. I don't think he's the best boxer ever because, yeah, he's a counter artist. He runs. He uses the rules. He scores points. He beats you by points. But Conor McGregor is not a boxer. Is he a good fighter in UFC? Absolutely. He's out of his realm here, though. I've had debates with people that I think are blinded by the McGregor the whole entire charm. This is pretty much a Ronda Rousey thing all over again, where Rousey was very overrated. She was a good fighter, but she was an overrated champion because the mystique was built around her. She was untouchable. McGregor has the same exact untouchable mystique, and he's going to be the Irish hero to come in and stop the cocky Mayweather and put him finally in his place, give him his loss. Not going to happen, anyone. That's just, anything's possible. He could catch him on a punch. Mayweather's more careful than that, I believe, and Mayweather has much more to lose in this fight than Conor McGregor. If McGregor gets knocked out, people are just going to go, whatever. He's not a boxer. He's he's a UFC fighter. It's expected. If Mayweather was in the octagon, he would have whooped his butt. And that's probably true. Mayweather has everything to lose here. He's pretty much carrying boxing on his back. If he doesn't win this fight, if he doesn't either TKO or straight up knock out McGregor, this is possibly the end of boxing as we know it. The UFC fans already have a lot over boxing lately. They have a lot to brag about. Their fights are more exciting. They have good money coming in on their pay-per-views. MMA is just the new big thing, and it's not really that new. It's been around for a while. Boxing needs this. It's not going to give them a huge bump if Mayweather beats McGregor, but it'll keep him alive. That sport's on life support. If Mayweather either loses flat out or even lets McGregor go 12 rounds, I feel like if McGregor goes 12 rounds, whatever the decision is, it's a win for him because he showed the world that he can step in the ring and compete with Floyd Mayweather in his sport. Mayweather needs to end this before the 12th. I think he needs to end it before the 10th. He can't let McGregor get that far. But I think that McGregor's going to lose. Mayweather's going to toy with him. He's going to tire him out. I know McGregor's putting up these training videos. He's in great shape. He's doing boxing training, all this. Cool. I can go do boxing training and put up videos too. I could put up 5-minute blips of me going really, really hard for 5 minutes. It doesn't simulate a fight. Mayweather's specialty is going 12 rounds and looking like it's still the first when he's in the 12th. He's always ready to do a 20-round fight. He's going to move. He's going to make Conor move. He's going to make Conor throw punches. He's going to dodge. He's going to tire Conor out. And when Conor is tired, that's going to be the end of it for him. I think Mayweather has not shown knockout power in a really long time. We may see a knockout for the first time in a while from Floyd Money Mayweather. And I'm no fan of his, but I'm just realistic, and I can tell you the difference between UFC and boxing. Quick blip, I just want to make a notice out to any Little League parents, anyone that has a relative that does Little League. There's a new rule change with the bats. I know they're constantly throwing out new rules. It's kind of annoying, but people love Little League. Kids love Little League. It's a great thing. They're going to be changing the rule starting effective January 1st, 2018. No more aluminum, no more alloy, no more composite bats. They've decided, USA Baseball has figured out a way to make a wood-like similar style bat that is going to be what is going to be used in Little League all across the nation. It's a bat that will have a USA Bats label on it, from what I understand. And those will be the only bats that will be allowed to be used. So hopefully you haven't gone out and bought a new bat for fall ball, or before you go out and get that bat that you wanted, hoping that it's going to be good for next year, don't spend that money yet. If you already did, possibly return it unless you need it that bad, or I don't know what to do for that, but the bat rule is going to go into effect. It's going to hurt a lot of people. I'm trying to spread the word right now. I don't know if companies like Louisville Slugger or Easton are going to give trade backs or going to do trades for these new bats. But I just wanted to try and get that word out before people go and spend good money and then have these $400 bats just sitting there maybe after one season of use and they're still in really good shape and they're now useless. All right, so that has been the Sports Opinions podcast. I'd like to thank everyone who listened, and hopefully this is going to become a weekly thing on Sundays. So keep listening, tune in. Again, I'm Alex Cuesta. You can find me on Twitter at @AQuestaNBN. That's ACUESTA_NBN. And you can find my work on the Sports Opinions blog. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good night.